Hi, it's Jason with a special Contrabass Conversations episode. We are talking today with Micah Howard, who I have had on the podcast multiple times. I've also been to the wonderful Pittsburgh Double Bass Symposium, which he hosts. In addition to playing in the Pittsburgh Symphony, Micah teaches at Carnegie Mellon University, and the Carnegie Mellon University Double Bass Studio has come on board as a sponsor, which I think is super cool. So we're going to talk about that here. It's the first time we've done something like this on the podcast, and the program speaks for itself, but you're going to hear about it and about Micah's approach to teaching and much more. So thank you for coming on board, Micah and Carnegie Mellon. And a quick shout out to our other sponsors, Upton Bass String Instrument Company. They make beautiful basses. I just got done interviewing jazz bass legend Mark Johnson and looked him up, and what was one of the first things that popped up, Upton Bass. He plays an Upton bass for his traveling needs. There's a great story on Mark and so many other bassists that play Upton Bass. You can learn more at uptonbass.com. And thank you also to Trumpet Labs, who make the awesome Nadine microphone. I discovered this microphone in 2020 and have totally fallen in love with it. It lives on my bass. I use it for any sort of bass recording. It is just absolutely fantastic condenser mic. Clear, natural sound, great feedback rejection. Christian McBride and many, many others play this microphone. And if you order one through eartrumpetlabs.com/contrabass, you will get a free t-shirt as well as this incredible microphone. Okay, here we go with our conversation with Micah Howard. So thank you for coming on board as a sponsor. I think that's very cool. I was actually just talking to Lloyd Goldstein, and I said, this is the first time I've ever had a bass studio sponsor the podcast, but I think it's a great fit, and I couldn't ask for a better institution to come on board. I'm a big fan of what you do.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe we're the first ones, to be honest. I mean, this makes total sense. I love what you do, and, I love having you at the symposium too and everything. So I think this is great. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, and I've known a lot of former Carnegie Mellon students. I mean, that's one of those institutions that has a reputation you see as people go and do all sorts of things, but especially if I think about orchestral performance, that's a school that I see on people's resumes a lot. And I've just heard nothing but great things about the school and about you and Peter and what you do. And I've been there a couple of times, so I've been able to see it in person, but it's a great place to study, it seems.
Yeah, and I also think that there are some names that people might be surprised to know that they studied at CMU. For instance, George Vance is a Carnegie Mellon graduate. I don't know if you knew that or not.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he studied with Tony Bianco at Carnegie Mellon and Galen McCormick. So two wonderful pedagogues went to CMU. And yeah, there are tons of players out there. I don't know all of the ones from the past, but I know a few, like there's Thomas Lederer, who's the co-principal in Dallas. He studied at Carnegie Mellon, and Joel Reist, principal in Nashville. Mm-hmm. But in recent years, like Corey Palmer, principal bass in Rochester Philharmonic, CMU graduate, and a bunch of Brandon McLean, who's our acting principal in Pittsburgh, is a former CMU student. He's our associate principal, but since Jeff left, we haven't had a principal audition, so he's been acting principal for years now. Yeah, and players all over the place. Utah, one of my students just got into the Tokyo Symphony in Japan. Very happy for him. Grand Rapids, Charlotte. These are just most recent ones. Buffalo. Paul Matz just got Buffalo just before the pandemic started. He was getting ready to move to Buffalo. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's been a lot of success out of the studio, and I love teaching there. And you know that I love Pittsburgh, and I love our section, and I love the bass community here. So I think it's a great place to study the bass, not just because of CMU, but also just because of the city itself.
Well, it's one of the great orchestras, one of the finest orchestras I've ever heard. And to be able to be in a city with an orchestra like that does so much. And especially if that's what you're looking to do, that just takes you so far. And to have students that are knocking on the doors and getting in the doors, like you just described, that's so important for bass players. I remember when I was at Northwestern, I was there in kind of a funny time where Jeff Radisich left and all the students vanished. And so none of us had any idea what the standard really was. Like we thought, are we playing well? Are we not? And to just be in a cohort where people are moving, you just actually seeing where the bar is. I mean, it's one thing, obviously, to study with you, in the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, but to actually see people that are getting to that point where they're moving ahead in auditions that are your cohort. I think that's just so important.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, and that our section here in Pittsburgh, they're just a bunch of great people who are willing to give their time performing, teaching. They give classes at the school pretty regularly. So in addition to what you see at the symposium, I bring people in throughout the year, and a lot of times it's PSO guys that are just giving their time. They're doing performances, giving master classes, and yeah, just a great group.
Well, one of the coolest things there are so many cool things about the symposium, but one of the coolest things about the symposium to me is that you enlist the entire Pittsburgh Symphony bass section. And I try to think of any other professional bass section in the United States or maybe worldwide, I'm not sure, that does that. I can't think of one or people that would be down for doing that. So I think it speaks volumes about the section and about what you do, bringing people together like that. And I know that people that, that's something on their yearly calendar. They're working on solo rep that they know they're going to play there. And it's just really a special thing that you all do there.
Oh, I really appreciate that. I think so too. I mean, I feel very privileged and lucky to have them all as my colleagues, to be in the orchestra. Yeah, it's a great group.
So talk through what's the, and this is a huge question, but like, what's the undergraduate experience like as a bass student at Carnegie Mellon, just in terms of nuts and bolts, like weekly lessons and that kind of thing, and then maybe we could talk a bit about graduate and how that might differ.
Right. Well, all of the students have weekly lessons with me, whether you're graduate, undergraduate, or advanced music study students. So those are the three tiers that I teach at the school. And then they also have rep class once a week with Peter Guild. And I think I probably mentioned this to you before, but we for years have been coordinating our orchestral lit program with Cleveland Institute of Music, Oberlin, and Duquesne here in Pittsburgh. And up until the pandemic came, we were doing regional mock auditions with all of our students. The last time was at Severance Hall. We all drove up there, and the students played for all the faculty from all these schools. Max Demoff is the one who's organized that, and it's been really great to have that experience with everybody. But yeah, and as an undergrad, all undergrads are required to do 3 recitals. So there's a sophomore, junior, and senior recital. So we work on that. And in terms of the pedagogical side of things and their lessons, I really don't have a cookie cutter approach to that. And people come from all kinds of backgrounds. So, they might have studied the progressive repertoire of the George Vance books, or they might have done Simandl. So they all have different backgrounds. They have different ways they approach the instrument. And I like to get to know them first before I start throwing things at them that I want them to study. But there are some things that I find really valuable regardless of their background. Like the Galen McCormick books, I think are fantastic. I like to get them to go through those. Even I know that like her first book is kind of, basic in terms of the left hand, but just getting that foundation of that détaché bow stroke and a good staccato bow stroke so that you can then graduate to the off the string, like orchestral stroke. Because we focus very much on orchestral music, of course, at CMU. We do a lot of recitals and things like that, but there's a lot of focus on the orchestral lit.
One of the things that I just thinking strategically, maybe as a student or potential student, one of the besides being a fantastic city and having the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra and the other ensembles and all these great bass teachers, you're a day's drive from some hilariously large percentage of the U.S. population. I mean, and I was struck by that, seeing you got Max coming in from Detroit or Cleveland or however, you've got so many big cities not far away, and that's so great in terms of being able to get a lesson in with somebody, major symphony orchestra player. It's also great for taking auditions. It's something that I feel you might not think that California feels isolated, but except for having Los Angeles, everything is hundreds or thousands of miles away, and so I think a huge benefit if you're looking to go into especially orchestral performance is having access to so many big cities with professional orchestras. That's just a huge benefit, I think.
Yeah, I mean, to go to Cleveland is 2 hours and 15 minutes. So I always encourage my students to set up lessons with the guys up in Cleveland, like with Scott Dixon or Derek Zadinsky or Max Demoff. I mean, that's also another great group of people. And they also are willing to give their time and their energy to the students. So that's wonderful. It's about 6 hours from Bloomington. If you want to go take a trip there and take a lesson with Kurt Maroki or Jeff Turner, just 5 hours to Philadelphia. So yeah, we're very well positioned here. 8 hours to New York City. But really the close one is Cleveland. I mean, it's really unbelievable how close we are there and how we're able to have that kind of connection with the Cleveland Orchestra.
Yeah, and that, as a Carnegie Mellon student for the Pittsburgh, you're mentioning all these other people that you bring in. I've just seen the Pittsburgh Double Bass Symposium, but I've seen your students get up and play for these people. You have Max Demoff every single year, I think you have, right? I think is he the most, but to have, you had Lauren Pierce the last time I was there in person, and to get a chance to do a masterclass with her or Jeff Turner or whoever. I mean, what a cool experience, in addition to the people that you're bringing in regularly outside of the symposium.
Oh yeah, we've brought in so many people for the symposium. Everybody from Tim Pitts to Paul Allison, David Allen Moore from your side of the country, and then Rex Serrani on our side, and Hal Robinson, and Nick Walker's been here a couple of times. Man, what a great teacher, a great guy, a great performer. So yeah, I can't even remember everybody that we brought in. I try to mix it up as much as possible year after year. And I'm actually looking at March 20th right now as a potential date for the next symposium. I was going to talk to you about coming to that one again, Jason. So I just have to make sure. Yeah, I just have to make sure we can actually do it in person. But that's my plan, is to have it in March here in Pittsburgh again. So if not, it'll be online.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And that completely free and open to the public, right? The Pittsburgh Double Bass Symposium. And you've been doing symposiums for even before you got to Carnegie Mellon, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah. I started them way back in 2006 when I taught at Youngstown State in Ohio. And then I started teaching at Duquesne in 2008. I brought it there. And then when I started at Carnegie Mellon, I've been doing it there. I used to do it every other year, but since I've been at Carnegie Mellon, I've been doing it every year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And if folks are interested, which that's one of the schools that I've recommended so many times. I had a graduating senior here a couple of years ago and was thinking about orchestral performance. I would say, check out Carnegie Mellon. It's one of those schools that you want to have on your radar, especially if you're thinking about orchestral performance or just bettering yourself as a bass player. You're offering a free trial lesson online for folks that might be interested, correct?
That's right. Yeah. Actually, if you go to micahbhoward.com/Heath, you can request a free trial lesson. Now, if you don't want to drive the distance, we can do it as a Zoom lesson. But if you want to come in person, we can do it in person. I would recommend in person. I do think that's the best way. But of course, that's not always practical. So I'm happy to do it over Zoom too. I've got plenty of experience with that now. So.
Well, and on the tech side of things, I mean, first of all, thank you as someone who's organizing bass events like that like the Pittsburgh Double Bass Symposium. It's so cool to bring people like that together, and that's not an easy task. As someone who's organized events myself, that's a lot on top of teaching at Carnegie Mellon, being full-time in the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra. But then I also love how technologically ahead of the game maybe you are with your iDouble Bass app, and then you, I think, are the only double bass festival probably on planet Earth that has their own dedicated app. And I have referenced and used that app so many times. So I just think it's really cool how you use technology in everything that you do. Also.
Well, you know that I'm an amateur programmer, so that's really where that all comes from. I probably told you the story that when I was my mom passed away a few years ago, and she knew that it was coming. So she started just giving me things from my childhood, and she brought a journal that I had to keep for one of my classes when I was 12. Oh my God, it is hilarious. All I talk about in that journal is how to balance out my bass practicing with my programming. Now, I didn't really do much programming until much later, like seriously. I mean, I wouldn't even call it seriously because I'm an amateur, but I got back into it maybe about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. I just love doing it. It's a fun thing, and I love how I can like, coordinate it with my bass, my love of the double bass. So.
Well, the detail that you put into, I mean, I love the iDoubleBass app, and then and just the level of information in there, and then also for the symposium, because I've gone through and referenced things, and just everything down to the program, down to the performers, down to the bios, just the level of detail is incredible, and I'm sure that's something that is equally as evident in your teaching and performing, and so it's just really cool. It's just cool that everything that you do out there, the level is so high. And it's been fun to be a part of the symposium and chat with you for the podcast and all that.
Oh, thanks, Jason. I should mention that because I knew that I was going to teach online, I revamped my whole website, micahbhoward.com, to make it better for my students. So when you are a student of mine, you have access to your own student portal now. So all of my notes from your lessons, you see them there. I videotape every lesson, whether it's Zoom or not, so that video will be available for you to watch right from my website. You can keep a practice journal on my website and all that stuff. And I did all that to make the experience better. And I'm happy. I've been wanting to do that for a long time for my students. So now that's something that I'm going to continue to build on as time goes on to just make the experience the best possible for my students. So.
Wow, that's so cool. I didn't even realize you were doing all that. That's even an added benefit. So very cool.
Yeah. You can actually, if you get a chance, Jason, you can go on there and just see, like, I have you can take a look at a mock-up of what the student portal looks like on there. Oh. I can't remember. If you just go to like online lessons, I think there's a link to something to show you what the student portal looks like. So if you want to take a chance to look at that.
Yeah, I will check it out. I'll point people to that too. And yeah, this is great. Anything else you want to get out there?
I think we hit everything. I mean, I just love Pittsburgh. I love teaching at CMU. I love teaching. I think the studio is great. This year we have 10 double bass majors and all great players. And I'm really excited about this year and all the years to come. I'm excited to see where my students end up.